Because when I look at the history of the Netherlands, sorry, but I feel ashamed. If you look at the things that we were proud of, slavery, what we call the golden century, it was a golden century at the cost of Africa and the East. I mean, look at what we did in Indonesia. We slaughtered, we had our own genocide there, yeah?
Pieter Rambags, tech entrepreneur turned, and I really love this trajectory, peace activist from the Netherlands. And no, this isn't an episode about Holland, okay? Although Holland keeps coming up. It keeps coming up in ways that will genuinely surprise you because, look, there's something most people don't really appreciate. The Dutch punch so far above their weight in global affairs that it almost doesn't make sense, at least not on the surface. Like, this is a country of 17 million people, right? Everybody included. A country you could fit inside Texas twice and still have plenty of room. And yet they keep showing up. In international courts, in conflict zones, in financial systems, in intelligence networks, especially in intelligence networks. We'll get into some of the very recent examples of that, and honestly, some of them are quite jaw-dropping. Okay, Peter, what we cover in this conversation, we go deep on propaganda, cognitive warfare, media manipulation, the Israel-Palestine conflict, and what's happening, or actually what's collapsing in international law. That's already a lot. That's already quite a dense conversation. But here's a thing I want to flag before we really get into it. When an interview wraps up, when I hit the stop record button, I usually invite guests for a kind of informal debrief. Just a chat, off the record. And because most of this is done remotely, means my interviews, yeah, that moment happens logically right after stop recording, which means it usually just disappears. Poof, gone. And I've always regretted it because, honestly, some of the most interesting things get said in those last few minutes. When the guest relaxes, when the performance drops, when it stops being an interview and starts being a conversation. This time I made a different call. I kept recording and I kept it in the edit completely uncut. Partly because I want you to get a feel how these things actually go. Like, I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, but like a backstage pass to the whole thing. But also, and this is the more important reason, because what came out in that debrief is genuinely useful. There's something specific that gets discussed about deception and manipulation. A practical thing, something you can actually take and apply. And it doesn't matter if it's in personal conversations, in business, in any context where someone might be trying to mislead you. So, worth sticking around for. For now though, here's Pieter Rambags. Pieter Rambags, what a pleasure having you. Thank you for inviting me here to your office in Den Haag. How are you?
You're welcome. I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
Good. I have a couple of notes that I prepared before I came here in regards to yourself, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You hold a master's in information science and economics from the Tilburg University, so you are coming out of IT, that's my understanding.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Now you're founder of Nippur. What's that?
Nippur is a data and analytics company that works for large companies, multinationals, in helping them collect data, centralized data, and make it available for management reporting. But I'm no longer involved. As you may have seen on LinkedIn, I stepped out of that company.
You care to elaborate why? I'm asking for a specific reason. So these days when people hear this kind of description, you know, there's Cambridge Analytica, data, big data, these kind of things.
That's what people think of when I say
exactly.
This. Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly was our field of play.
Yeah.
Is still the field of play of Nippur.
Yeah.
We have the knowledge how to do these things, so we understand very well what Cambridge Analytica did, but we despise it because that's not the way you should do business. Yeah. That's why also this company, Nippur, had a tagline saying taking data to heart, which means doing the right things with data and also being ethical, you know, not abuse the data, because you can do beautiful things with data, but you can also manipulate with data. And we have seen enough examples in the world by now. But yeah, that's the world of data and analytics, and it's a very I still love it. I use it in my human rights activities today. Data as a means of pointing people to the truth, at least stories that you can check. So I'm very happy to be one of the first in those days to start on that journey working with data, because it was in 1989 that I graduated, which is already a long time ago.
Yes, and along comes AI,
Yeah.
which makes all these things even more, by a power of magnitude, more effective in terms of targeting, online profiles, psychological profiling, these kind of things, micro-targeting.
Yeah, again, two sides of the story. It's when it comes to the kind of work we do, if they do in IT with data and analytics, it's fantastic. The production capability of consultants, it jumped like mad. It's because you can ask anything, even you can there's code generation in there. And we develop very complex code sometimes to build data pipelines. They are very complex, I can tell you. And nowadays that process speeds up. But the dark side, of course, is that there are limitations. First of all, the tools itself, they have their limitations because it's still in development, of course. They have to be tuned, they have to be optimized, you have to train these models constantly. But there are people training these models, and these people have agendas. And that's why you see that a lot of these tools, like the ones from OpenAI, ChatGPT, but also DeepSeek from the Chinese people, or Grok from Elon Musk, etc. And there are many, many more now, have their limitations. And I always warn from be careful what you do. Use your own brain and do research. And then as an example, by the way, I use DeepSeek from China. And I tell people, please ask that one question. Ask DeepSeek what happened in 1989 on the Tiananmen Square. And it'll not give you an answer. It'll just block. It'll tell you, let's talk about something positive. I'm here to give you a positive experience.
I did a similar experiment with OpenAI, with ChatGPT. Yeah. So from an analytic perspective, I built up a truth funnel based on historical knowledge as I have in regards to what happened early in Israel, where at the beginning it said no, maybe, till it had no other choice to actually admit what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a couple of examples.
What you say, I did a similar thing indeed. And what I noticed is it first starts saying, you have to be careful, you have to be aware of all the complexities and the people involved and Holocaust and blah, blah. And then it gave the answer. One of the things I asked was, of course, is it true that Israel is founded because 3 terrorist organizations invaded? There you have them. And it acknowledged that. But I don't think for long, because also OpenAI will be remodeled by the Zionists, I'm afraid. That's what I heard about.
Yes, and there is an overall concerted effort. I mean, TikTok, the whole story, I mean, I don't know how many episodes about Larry Ellison, his son. So Larry Ellison, co-founder or founder of Oracle, who has Pentagon contracts, now owns 170 million Americans' behavioral data, and his son is one of the largest media empires in the US now, right? So Pentagon, data, and media means for me manipulation, right?
And for me, seeing that it's so easy to acquire that, because there are some very rich people, that scares me. But on the other hand, we know it. So it's our task, it's the people's task to be aware of that, I think, and use these tools, but with knowledge. And with patience and with care, and look at other tools as well, other sources. Although people will try to affect everything and turn everything into propaganda, and that's actually the way I try to operate. So not believe what I see, but go further. Examine more sources. But it's difficult sometimes, because even I am very easily fall victim to propaganda.
It's called cognitive biases. We have, I think, 180 different cognitive biases that we as a science are aware of. I'm pretty sure there are more. And some of them are very powerful, and it doesn't matter if you know them.
Precies.
You're still falling victim. And if someone in the audience doesn't believe me, there's the implicit association tests at the Harvard University. It's for free. It's on different topics. They will measure how biased you are exactly on specific topics.
Wow.
Race, gender, male, female, whatever. Yeah. And even if you know how it works, which you will know, of course, after you did it the first time, it still works, because it goes comes from the subconscious.
I think I can relate. I'm not an expert on this topic, but I read about it because I find it very interesting, and I would love to receive this from you so I can do it myself.
Harvard University, Google Harvard University implicit association test.
Okay,
I will send you the link.
But I can also tell you, and it worked. I did it myself once in a classroom in The Hague, the Haagse Hogeschool. My first training on propaganda. It was an experiment from my side, and I started with propaganda. I fed the students propaganda, and before my eyes, I turned 98%, 95% of them in the direction that they didn't want to go. Using, by the way, a lion as an example. It was amazing. And it was not my idea. I saw it somewhere online and I couldn't believe it. So I said, I'm going to repeat this experiment. And it was so easy. To make in this case, the case was this. To make people believe that lions don't roar. That they make a coughing sound. And I did this because I told them two truths about lions. And then I told them the lie. And later I asked them, do lions roar? And everybody was like, nay, they don't roar. I said, yeah, sorry, I fooled you. And then I showed them a video of a roaring lion. And for me, it was like, oh, it was so easy to do that.
This is the part that for me as behavior analyst is the most concerning, to say it polite. Knowing how easy it is to manipulate people to hate each other.
Yeah.
You know, dehumanization. It was first Saddam Hussein. I mean, it can go Hitler, Stalin, whatever. Hussein, Libya's Gaddafi. You know, now we have the situation in Iran, where we will talk about it in a moment. Yeah. But before we do, from a IT background, which we both share, how did you make the jump to peace movement? I like to ask this kind of questions because usually I get two different answers.
Okay.
Yeah? The one is, you know, it was a gradual process. It's an interesting story in itself. And sometimes you get this, no, I had this one epiphany and suddenly I saw it clearly. So
yeah, my story goes way back. It's very personal, but I like to share it. I'm very open on it. I grew up in a small family in the south of the Netherlands with a father who was very, very ill. He spent half my life in the hospital. And when that happens, and there are no structures that I think we have more of them now, where a family like mine is being helped. Yeah. You're on your own. My mother suffered big time. She had to work really hard to make ends meet, to make ends meet, and I appreciate her a lot. I can tell you for that. But as a child, with my two brothers, we were on our own, if you like, because when this happens, it puts so much stress on the family, and that's when I woke up very early as a child, because I noticed that the world was not there for us. There were no structures, no organization, no nothing. Yeah, some neighbors, maybe some family, but in the end you're on your own. And then you see injustice. So you feel injustice, but then you also see it. And this is the same experience I have I asked this question to people that I work with here, and they all have similar stories. Some people were bullied at school. Others had also life-changing events in the past, which made them think differently. Now, and then what happened was that already at a young age, I think I was like 16, 17 years old, studying VWO, I made this promise to myself that if in due time I have the time and the knowledge and maybe some money to help other people not to suffer the way that we suffered, then I would love to do that. And I held that promise because when I was raising a family and when I was having a company, employing people, I always was a volunteer. So in 2016, I set up refugee work in my hometown where the municipality failed. I did it with 40 volunteers, just us being unpaid, but we could do it because we were motivated. But also I fought for youth in my village to have a new building for scouting, where the municipality was stopping us and frustrating us. We just went ahead and we succeeded. And I learned a lot by doing that, fighting government, fighting civil servants, fighting the system. And it cost me a lot, because I can tell you it was not always nice. I really suffered a lot of stress, but it also made me stronger. It made me believe I'm doing the right stuff, you know. And that up until a couple of years ago, since I'm heavily involved into refugees, my heart lies with refugees. So I studied it, and I became very knowledgeable about the refugees and their quest. I started making content about them slowly on social media, which was also coming up, of course. And then 7 October happened, 7 October 2023, and the lies and propaganda about Palestine flew over the table. Well, I woke up about Palestine when I was 22, I think. This is 40 years ago. So I was so annoyed that I went in with fierce, if you like, on social media, on TikTok in this case. And then all of a sudden, boom, I have a channel with 50,000 followers on TikTok. And that worked. And at that moment, I was like, wow, now I have a channel that I can use. And so I also ended up here at the Hague Peace Project and the new peace movement, because you can't do this alone, being a human rights activist. That's very bad for your mental health, I can tell you. I was doing it alone, but I was then at the point where I thought by myself, I need people. I need more people like me so we can support each other. So, and that's actually my whole story, how it started, small and grew, and over time became now a full-time activity, because for me it's now like a job, although I don't get any money for it.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. At this point, and before I forget, so the person who brought us into contact was the former Dutch ambassador Nicolaus van Dam. I interviewed him 2 or 3 times. I see him in fluent Arabic on various international news media discussing Israel, Iran, whatever. He spent most of his career in the region. So he's really someone who, who is knowledgeable, but from the inside out, right? And I think that's the segue that I'm using for 2 things. First of all, to briefly look at the Dutch, because we are here basically in the center of Den Haag, and the Middle East, and because of Iran, we will talk a little bit of Iran. So my entry point is here the recent, how shall I say this, capture, I can't say capture, but there was a little upheaval in Tehran when a Dutch diplomat, I think he was called André van Wichen, was called bringing Starlink devices into Iran. He then fled at this day. I actually reported on this. I have an article on my Substack. He fled, basically, left everything behind.
Left his suitcase behind.
Yes, and another Dutch diplomat later had to come back to get it all out. So they opened this in the presence of the diplomatic representatives of both countries, Iran and it was quite interesting. So for me, it was the starting point to look into, hey, what actually do the Dutch do? I mean, for an international audience, the Dutch, the Belgians, little countries, what are they doing in Iran or with Iran? Or do they have any interests? Yeah, is there any thoughts that you have?
Of course I have any thoughts, because one of the reasons I'm here is because I'm annoyed with my own country and with the European Union and with America and Israel, of course. Kijk, we always blame the rest of the world, and we sort of seek this moral high ground. We think so big of ourselves. That's how I grew up in this country, by the way. At some point I believed it. Oh, Netherlands is something special, It's not. It's not. We are the same. I think every country that has certain interests in the world, they employ activities that other countries will not like. And then we start blaming each other without looking at ourselves. Think of this biblical term, you see the splinter in someone's eyes, but you don't look at the log in your own eyes. And I can't stand this. This kind of behavior, it's hypocrisy. And I hate hypocrisy, to be honest. And of course the Netherlands does it. They whine about Russia when there are cyber attacks. They put it in the news. By the way, our news, our mainstream media, they broadcast that. They voice the voice of the government. But we never put the other story there, that we are also playing these games and also participating in operations, covert operations worldwide. I mean, we're nothing better. We have the technology, we have the people, the smart people, we have the infrastructure, especially when IT is concerned. Of course we do it. And in this case, it was so stupid, obvious. Also a little bit stupid in my opinion, because you can expect to be caught by the Iranians. And you're not allowed to bring that stuff into the country. So who do you think you are? That's a question that I would like to ask this guy. Who do you think you are? doing this.
This guy, this is not an initiative, I believe, from again, I forgot his name, Andre van Wichen. I think there's something behind it. And probably it's not the first time. This is, there were only 6 or 8 devices in there. So I think there's something larger behind it. I mean, people have to realize that, that was for the Iranian government, and very clear in my conversation, I do not defend the Iranian government. I cannot even imagine what it must be to live in such an environment as free thinkers like we are. I mean, we would be dead in Iran. Yes, I'm not defending it. Yeah?
Okay,
but from the Iranian perspective, I understand why these kind of devices are highly sensitive, which they had spent, I don't know how many millions to develop a technology that allowed them to interfere with Elon Musk's all-powerful satellite network. I mean, it's probably coming from China or from the Russians. We don't know, right? But that was quite sophisticated. Yeah. Now, I just want to list a couple of small items that I found to my surprise after I looked into this Andre van Wichen story. Now, Eric van Saberen, I think you can also comment on him.
Yeah, it was a story I had to dig up because it happened quite a while ago. But Erik van Sabbe was also a Dutch person involved in a covert operation in Iran, where he was part of a group of people who tried to ruin the development of nuclear capability of Iran by introducing technology into the reactors that were contaminated with computer viruses. And what I learned about that case was that they prepared it for many years. The AIVD was involved, the Dutch Secret Service, but also Mossad and CIA were involved. And of course it takes time, but because he had to gain trust to be allowed to enter Iran, because we know that a country like Iran, they are not fools. They of course do everything to prevent people from outside to come in through internet or whatever and to break into systems. So you have to be in the country and even into the factory near the machine to do something. And with the USB they injected that stuff and they succeeded partially. I think 20 to 25% of the production or creation process they could hamper. I'm not sure, but it's a wild story, and it's also on the internet. It's freely available. It's not a hoax or so. It's not like a conspiracy theory.
No.
It's out there. It's being spoken about. Although and that's sad, it slips away in history. So if you ask a lot of Dutch people nowadays, people will probably not know this. So hopefully when they see this interview, they will like, huh? And look it up and start talking about it with each other, because we need to know that the Netherlands is on a continuous basis
not neutral.
Not neutral. No, of course not.
And I bring this up exactly for this reason. The Iranians, they have historical reasons to be suspicious.
Of course.
Right? I have a couple of other points which I briefly would like to bring in here. So the IVD, that's the Secret Service of the Dutch, hacked the Iranian Defense Ministry's email system in 2000. Yeah, it was also quite a story. Then the Dutch Secret Service had 2 front companies to infiltrate Natanz. That's the one of the nuclear facilities in Iran between 2004 and 2007. Now the Iranians, they hit back. I mean, it's a two-way game. So we have Iranian dissident assassinations on Dutch soil between 2015 and 2017. An attempted assassination in Haarlem, of all places, which is a cute little village not so far from Amsterdam, in 2024, not that long ago, right? Then we have the Dutch funding of the radio, and I hope I not mutilated the name too much, Samanech. Yeah, it's an anti-government radio station. Incidentally, if you allow me, I interviewed Yasamine Mathur. She's an Iranian-born Oxford scholar, and as a young lady, you know what she did? Because I'm reading this, she set up as a technician an anti-government radio station in the mountains of Iran. Incredible story. You see her today. She's a lady. I visited her personally in Oxford. Incredible story.
That's a beautiful story. Yeah.
Radio. Yeah, and then of course, and we briefly discussed this, the Abdul Qadir Khan connection. I like it, but it's not related to Iran.
To Pakistan.
Shall we briefly?
Ja, nou ja, goed. I remember that story too, as the person who stole nuclear technology and brought it to Pakistan. With the, and that way, Pakistan was capable of building the atomic bomb. In the end, yeah.
He's the father of the Pakistan atomic bomb. You can check it again. Go check it out on the internet.
It's widely available.
But there is a catch. The Dutch Secret Service and the CIA knew, and they watched it, and they let him go.
They let it
Why?
happen.
Because they wanted to infiltrate his network. Yeah. Well, oops. Meanwhile, Pakistan has a nuclear bomb, and probably more countries, thanks to the knowledge that this gentleman stole. I think he studied here in the Netherlands. And he stole actually physical centrifuges and brought them to Pakistan.
Yeah.
So all I want to say with this is to underline, even a little country like the Netherlands, although very closely aligned with the Western NATO, Five Eyes, etc., you know, they have their own agenda, and sometimes they are powerful beyond. You know, you wouldn't expect this from such a little country.
Yes, I expect that from this little country.
But most of the people.
Most people not. No, because when I look at the history of the Netherlands, sorry, but I feel ashamed. If you look at the things that we were proud of, slavery, what we call the golden century, it was a golden century at the cost of Africa and the East. I mean, look at what we did in Indonesia. We slaughtered, we had our own genocide there. Yeah, that's how I woke up. But then later I found out that there were much more atrocities that we were involved in, even not so long ago. I will mention one. Probably I'm going to get a lot of criticism, but it's documented. The way we behaved in Srebrenica. And now I'm not talking about the fact, for instance, that our soldiers were not capable of protecting 8,000 Bosnian men, but the fact that it's well known that our soldiers were dehumanizing the Muslims there. When there was hunger, they were not feeding them properly. Yeah? They even made fools of Muslim women. We don't talk about that, but it happens. Our role in Iraq, Qadisha, you know, how many people did we kill? 72? We shouldn't be there. It's an illegal war. And then we end up with our F-16 killing people. Now, that's my country. And by the way, if I can mention a book, if you like, there is an author called Chris van der Ploeg. Maybe you know him. He wrote now 2 books. In Dutch, De Grote Koloniale Oorlog, The Great Colonial War, part 1, and I'm reading part 2 now. Every page I turn, I'm more and more ashamed of the Netherlands, of Europe, of America, of what we do to the world. And it's very well documented. 2/3 of the book is the story, and 1/3 of the book is the how do you call that? The verantwoording, the
responsibility.
So pointing out that it's not. It's a fantastic book, and I learn a lot from it. So I would like to tell to Dutch people, why don't you buy that book and start reading it? Because it'll open your eyes and you will look with a different perspective to the world that we created.
Hi, quick interruption, but I promise it will be brief. You may have noticed the views on this channel aren't what they used to be. And I want to be straight with you about that because it's not random, unfortunately. We went from over 100,000 views on a number of our interviews to a couple of thousand on a good day. And I'm not kidding. Same content, same level of work, same focus on quality. Nothing changed on our end. What did change is that the algorithm quietly decided that these kind of conversations about geopolitics, power structures, analysis that actually pushes back on the official narrative, that stuff gets buried. Not taken down, not banned outright, just, I don't know, starved of oxygen, slowly and quietly. Which, when you think about it, is actually a more elegant form of censorship than suspending accounts, right? Less visible, less outrage. And since Twitter already did the suspension thing on me directly, so yeah, I've seen both versions. So here's my ask. If you want to make sure you actually get this kind of content, not if and when a platform decides you should see it or allows you to see it, but when it actually comes out, come find me on Substack. Direct line, no middleman, no shadow banning, just the work straight to you. And there's a bonus in for you too. Subscribers, and no, you don't need to pay anything. Get my weekly deep dive reports, research-based, no filler, on some of the most pressing issues of our time. The kind of stuff that doesn't make it into the mainstream news cycle, or if it does, not in any way that actually helps you understand what's going on. Links in the description. Now, back to Pieter.
You just said illegal wars, and we can right away go to what's happening right now. Today is March 4, I believe. March 4, 2026. With this illegal, according to international law, absolutely illegal, how shall we call it, attack on Iran. I saw, incidentally, I just saw the BBC, so unbelievable.
BBC is
so
awful,
how dare Iran defend itself? They are the aggressors. This is the framing that we're seeing in the Western media. It's just incredible.
Yeah. But have you also heard the reaction of our new Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tom Berendsen? He was asked, what about international law? And then he answers something like, yeah, that's only one of the aspects, there's more to be taken into consideration. International law is the pillar should be the pillar under everything we do. But we dropped it. This is now a world in which only the strongest companies determine what's going to happen. There is no international law anymore. And I'm shocked.
True. And I've discussed this with many people, amongst which US Ambassador Charles Freeman, the US Ambassador Jack Matlock, who was the last US ambassador in the Soviet Union, very bright mind. But Charles Freeman told me diplomacy is dead. Yeah. This is exactly what he said. Yeah.
And that's something, by the way, because you're also here as guest at the new Vredesbeweging, the new peace movement in the Netherlands that we set up as one of the founding elements. And that's what we
mention it when people want to reach out. Before we forget it, mention it how to reach out.
The new Vredesbeweging.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Dutch or is it English?
It's Dutch. Yeah. We focus on Dutch society. Yeah. We want to make the people more illiterate. Tell them the other side of the story.
Yeah.
The
more
truth.
literate.
More literate. Yeah. Sorry, not illiterate. Literate. You're right. You can find this on nieuwevredesbeweging.nl. But we are on many social media, of course, and we're trying to be present. We're growing fast, by the way. We are 25 plus NGOs who are, it's a big group, which forms a platform, if you like. And these NGOs now also attract a lot of citizens from the Netherlands who follow us and want to be informed about what's going on and participate in our activities that we organize. And we are now, in March, we are now 1 year old, I would say. But still growing. And what we stress is what you just mentioned, that's why I say this, is that diplomacy is key. Why don't we talk to one another anymore? Because we have this idea of when you feel safe, I'll be safe. That's the whole idea. So I should listen to you. I should listen to you why you do what you do, why you act the way you act, what your needs are, what your concerns are. And if I can match that, then we can find each other and be partners maybe. But diplomacy is gone. Even in the Ukraine war, I think there were some talks in the beginning, very little, and that was it.
Unbelievable. Two nuclear superpowers not talking with each other. Yeah. Why is diplomacy dead? I don't know if you followed this. So Marco Rubio had a kind of éclat in the US after, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, I'm just working on an article about it, where he was asked after he was grilled he was grilled at the Congress in regards to the reasons that they actually went to war. Coming out, his mindset was not really on protecting. So he bluntly talked about the truth. So apparently the circular argument, so America attacked to preempt Iran if and when Israel will attack. So he said, Israel attacked. We knew if Israel attacks, the Iranians will attack American interests. So we had to preempt. Yeah, this is the most. I'm really looking for a word now. Yeah, but it's a contrived reason to justify a war which was decided decades ago. If you remember General Wesley Clark, 7 countries in 5 years, and Iran is the last country on that list that was not yet attacked.
This is what Netanyahu once said.
Yeah. Since 4 years, he said it.
By the way, I call him Milikovsky because that's his real name. Netanyahu is not, you know that? Okay.
Yeah.
Many people are not aware of that, so that's why
Yeah,
I
they
do
think
it on
he's from
purpose.
Israel. He's not.
Because most of the Israeli leadership,
Yeah.
they have like Ukrainian and German names because that's where they come from. Now, if you ask me, everything that's happening, and of course it's Israel who's leading this. They sort of own America, I think. They have a lot of dirt. The Epstein files, I think everything is related.
Exactly.
But if I, like an onion, dig deeper in it, then and trouwens not only I, but many colleagues of mine, we believe that underneath there are some pillars that are responsible for this. And that is the effect capitalism has on the world, neo-colonialism and imperialism. These are the things causing all this. So everything you see are symptoms. But a lot of people, for instance, worry about Trump. Trump is a fool. He's a danger to the world. For me, I don't care about Trump. Trump is a symptom. Biden was equally bad. Obama was bad. He was a war criminal.
True.
We may remember this Operation Timber Sycamore, in which he fueled with weapons, I think, the rebels, and that's when the war exploded, and we got all these refugees to Europe. It's the system. It's the people. It's society as a whole. That's the problem. And they bring forth people like that. And if we address that, and that's one of the things we are trying to come up with here, to come up with new stories, because humans, going back to the start of our interview, you mentioned also about cognitive bias and stuff like that. We people, we need stories. We want to believe in something. Yeah, we talk to each other, we build stories, and that's what we believe in, and that could be very attractive, or it could be something scary. Now, what if we were capable of building a new story, of a new future that's appealing to everybody? And that way destroy the systems we have created, one of which is capitalism. Because capitalism, we see it now in America, but also in Europe, it's going to end with a crash. I mean,
it eats itself.
It eats itself.
Yeah.
It's like it's hoarding all the wealth of the world to a few people. Yeah. Like in America, 1% owns everything.
Unbelievable.
Maybe in the meantime of the whole world. And that cannot sustain itself. Because people suffer, even in the Netherlands. Yeah, now we are going we're jumping now, but look at the housing crisis we have here. We need 400,000 houses or so, I don't know, healthcare, etc. While we were sending money to Ukraine or weapons to Ukraine to fuel a war that's endless. We should talk. Yeah, there should be a dialogue, and we can talk with Putin. That's what we believe. You should start doing that. Now, in the end, this is happening, and I also heard another term in that concept, and I believe in that. It's called managed decline. So if you look at the behavior of people like Marco Rubio, I don't know if they are fully aware of this, but I do believe somewhere that they are doing this to protect their interests. Because with weapons, if you know that the world is going down, if you know that we're all going to suffer, that there will be poverty, that there will be a limitation in resources, you have to do something to make sure that you are not affected. And one of the ways to do that is to start a big weapons industry and start wars and hoard everything towards you while the rest perishes, the rest of the world perishes. And that's a theory called managed decline. I don't know if you've heard about it. We're reading a lot about it now, and it makes sense. I have to research it also a little bit more. But to me it makes sense. It's like, if you have the power, did you hear, for instance, I thought it was a hoax, but I look it up then, that Zuckerberg, somewhere on an island, he's building a huge...
And he's not the only one. Survival, yeah. All those rich super billionaires, they're building their own survival islands somewhere in anticipation of...
They feel something coming, or they know something, I don't know.
Yeah. Some of the biggest investors are liquidating their assets around the globe. So these guys, they know something is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are looking at it and we can do nothing about it, except maybe create a more appealing future with another story, a storyline that hopefully people will adhere to and will say, hey, that's what I like. And as grassroots, start a new movement. You cannot do this top down. Maybe you ever heard the expression, you cannot disrupt yourself. It's if you have a system like our system, our democratic system, it doesn't work. I think that's obvious now. For how many years are we struggling? Yeah, and every time people vote and then they hope for the better. Now it's day 66. They have shown their face in 2 days. Everybody knows day 66 is not going to do what they promised. So we're back at zero. that system is not going to work for us. So we need a new system. But how is that system going to work? And I think it should be outside of that system that we should build something new. Like you cannot disrupt yourself. Like a company. If you have a company, you're very successful, but you're starting to struggle and you think, technology has changed, markets have changed. What companies do, they start a new startup next to the big company, if you like, to play with the new possibilities. And in my history, I remember, I saw new companies emerge from that where the other ones perished. Why can't we do the same thing with our political and democratic systems?
There are attempts being made, but by the wrong parties. There are attempts being made by large corporations and billionaires to build their own IT-based societies which are completely outside of the international law. They're buying more and more land. They're talking to governments on various continents. They try to build a kind of utopian society which is completely excluded, with own laws, with own money, with own everything, outside of the regular, outside of the normal society.
But it sounds like only for the happy few.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's not what I want. I want something for everybody.
That's why I said, but coming from the wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in something called sociocracy. You may have heard about it, I think. It's a system where you bring the decisions to the floor, to the people, empower people where they live. And we see examples, of course, of that. There are like energy corporations, there are farming corporations, where people embrace a farmer or a few farmers and start to make their own food. I think we can do that much more. And if you then do that locally, then everybody is involved and committed. And probably make and probably make better decisions. This is called socialism. And then of course the Americans are like,
now you said the red word.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not allowed to say that. Yeah. But I think I can relate.
Yeah. I would say, very provocative. In Los Angeles, you have, I don't know, a parallel street right next to the beach, which is occupied by homeless people as far as you can look. And then you have this kind of drug pandemic virtually, where they walk like zombies. Yeah. So I would say, comparing, ask those people where they would like to live and how they would like to live. Is it America? I doubt it. Is it the capitalist system under which America is? I doubt it. Yeah, I think, don't nail me on the cross if I'm not exactly right, but I believe 30%. Can it be? I read somewhere, the back of my mind, 30% of the American people live from food stamps.
Yeah.
More than 80%, it's higher than 80% of Americans don't have a passport. I think how many, 90, again, those are approximate numbers, don't. No,
but I know these numbers, I relate.
Yeah. But more than 90% only speaking, excluding of course the expatriate or the Spanish or whatever, but they speak only English. Yeah? So they have a very narrow view of the world, which explains, one of my examples, which explains, I saw pictures, actually have a picture still, where the young American soldiers they sent into Iraq had the Twin Towers and the Pentagon engraved on their helmets, believing they're going to get revenge for 9/11, not knowing that Saddam Hussein had Bush of course was behind this. I know he fostered this belief that we have to go in there because of 9/11, but it's a total different story. That's a can of worms.
Is something I'm very happy that you bring this up, because this is now precisely a topic that I address quite regularly on TikTok. Because
Tucker Carlson spoke about it recently. I encourage everyone. So now suddenly you can talk about this topic again, because before that everyone said, "Yeah, you're not."
For me, there's even one step before it. So on TikTok, I see the whole world, and on TikTok maybe we can go live, as it's called. You can open your channel and talk to your followers. You can have a whole night a debate with people. You can ask people to join and talk and discuss. You have to monitor it very well, by the way. But I love doing that. I do that a lot. So sometimes I speak to these soldiers that are everywhere in the world, defending their country. And my question is, how are you defending your country in Abu Dhabi? Who's attacking you? Who's attacking the United States? When did the last bomb explode?
Or in Germany, 50,000 American soldiers in Germany.
I know.
Germany is occupied.
And if you ask these questions, many of them, they switch off or so. Or what if, even worse, these body bags come home.
Which they already do from Iran.
He died for his country. defending his country. How? Where were you shot? On the American soil? No, you were shot thousands of kilometers far away. Isn't that a bit weird? What are you doing there? Go home, Yankee. Remember, that's what we say, Yankee, go home. And I asked them those questions. And then they're like, you sometimes see the fog in their eyes from, huh? What's he saying? So I turn it around. And that's what we're talking about. And that's what you also, in this war against Iran here say, it's we have to protect our assets. Yeah, but why do you have 800 bases all around the world and the majority around Iran? Sometimes I even make a joke from, yeah, Iran shouldn't have positioned its country so close to America's bases.
Yeah, they said the same about Russia. So the American bases, they actually is an iron grip around China and Russia, and by approximation also Iran. Yeah. And if you say 800 bases, I mean, some of them are cities. Some of them are small, but some of them are cities. And there are about 800-ish bases that we know of, and an estimated 150 black sites, which kind of do all kinds of illegal stuff that no one is supposed to know.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And I'm fed up with that. And that's imperialism. Eh? So I'm telling Americans, a lot of the Americans, can you imagine that we rather see you go, take your bombs, your nuclear weapons here, and get the hell out of here. I don't want you.
Even Japan, look, Okinawa, regular demonstrations from tens of thousands of Japanese people who want their land back. Yeah. Not to mention all the rapes and I don't know what happens perpetrated by Americans in Okinawa.
But again, looking at the American population, I traveled America a lot. I had the opportunity to do that. I worked there, by the way. As IT guy, I spent my time in Silicon Valley, of course, which I found very interesting. I didn't know that Oracle was a Zionist company. I have to admit, a big part of my life, I worked with Oracle databases.
Larry Ellison, me too, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, you too? Okay.
Larry Ellison.
I feel a bit ashamed, but you can't know anything, not everything. But when I remember from my travels, especially if you come in the middle between the mountain ranges, so in the emptiness, if you like, you know, Arizona, New Mexico, Wyoming, all these states, and you talk to people, I was shocked by the level of propaganda they were fed, by the lack of good information. The fact, also, by the way, this happens also in the Netherlands, let's be honest.
True.
Most Dutch people only watch NOS. And I tell people, don't do that. No. Because NOS, my God, on my TikToks, I spent, especially in the beginning, I spent so much time debunking their propaganda, just taking what they wrote and then rewriting it and writing it properly. But nevertheless. But in America, it's even worse, you know. CNN, Fox News, Sky News, what have they? No, Sky News is English, I'm not sure. Education system fails, and then you have a society, what we just said, that ends up supporting, of creating these kind of monsters like Biden, Harris, Obama, Trump, Rubio.
One word about Larry Ellison in combination with Marco Rubio. 10, 12 years ago, Marco Rubio was vetted by Larry Ellison for his suitability in politics vis-a-vis Stance for Israel. I have all the emails. And by the way, they're not my emails. I would name the source if I would know it. Was it drop site or this kind of source? So the then Israeli ambassador to the UN arranged this kind of vetting of Marco Rubio by Larry Ellison for his suitability to defend the Israeli cause. Meaning influence of,
this happens here too. Eh? This is one of the big things I'm fighting here. This is, if you ask me what I'm doing throughout the week, so I spend a lot of time on the New Peace Movement about fighting the war pigs, the war rhetoric. But my time for 80% is consumed regarding the Palestine quest, as I call it. And we are fighting in the Netherlands, CD. Do you know CD? Okay, you heard about AIPAC. AIPAC is the organization, the Israeli lobby in America, that pays politicians to be in favor of them. So that both Democrats and Republicans, they are corrupted.
So it doesn't matter who is AIPAC actually.
It doesn't matter. We have the same organization here. And I want Dutch people to be aware of this, because everywhere I go, I still find out that a lot of people don't know this. And by the way, they are here already for 50 years. CD stands for Centrum Informatie en Documentatie Israël. Centrum Information Documentation Israel. And if you look at the website, they say, we stand for the Jewish people here, we protect their interests, we fight anti-Semitism, and we educate about the Holocaust. That sounds very Nice. That sounds, and by the way, there should be a fight against anti-Semitism and there should be good Holocaust education. However, the problem is the way they do it, they feed us propaganda. So they are almost the monopolist when it comes to education on all our schools. All our schools, they make the materials because they're being paid by our government to do that. And here's this thing, this circular reference. But if you look at the documentation that they provide to schools and to children, our children, if you study the materials, and I did that, so and there are some, if you like, I can put some websites, give you some websites that maybe you can put below this interview so people can look for themselves. Leren over the Holocaust.nl or Israel-Palestijnen.nl. If you know the story of Palestine and Israel, and you then read that material, then they exploit the Holocaust, and that everything they do, that they are always the victim. Even today, that they're the victim, that the Palestinians in this case are the monsters, you know. And that's what they do. They always play the victim card. And CD is like, it's so strong in our politics that probably people are waking up now. More and more people are waking up. We have a group called Teachers for Palestine, who, and associates. There are many more groups that work together, who are now also supporting teachers who are aware of this, but who are scared because if they speak out or speak about CD, say, I don't want to use that material, they're being attacked by their own boards, and of course they're being attacked by CD and the Telegraaf, you know, the Telegraaf newspaper. Yeah. There's a lot of oppression on us, so there is a lot of tension. CD is very well capable of trying to stop us, but we will not stop anymore. So a couple of years ago we started. For the first time we attacked CD 2 years ago. It was at the KIT in Amsterdam, maybe you heard about it. They wanted to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And that was the first time where we said, now it's enough. Yeah, it should stop. And from that moment on, you see also more news media now, also social media starting, daring to attack CD. Nobody dared to attack CD. And you know why? Because then you were an anti-Semite. Yeah. And if you're an anti-Semite in the Netherlands, you go to jail 2 years. So they always try to make you an anti-Semite, and we are not. Nobody's an anti-Semite. You know, it's not about Jews or Judaism. So now CD, and then one of the stories that we heard lately was that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they wrote an article, they published something. CD managed to get it corrected in 20 minutes just by committing some phone calls. There's enough evidence on the web, and there were some documents made about it, some documentaries made about it. Now, imagine you are not happy with something that Foreign Affairs is doing. Try to have it changed. What do you think will happen? They'll never listen to you. I can even give you an example, by the way. You remember the Global Summit Flotilla, the last one. They went to Gaza. In the same week as the drones flew in from Russia in Poland, and the whole NATO was screaming hell, and they were F-35s were flying towards these drones to bring them down. In the same week, Israel attacked with drones European people on boats in the Mediterranean. I called Foreign Affairs. I told them, hey guys, where are the F-35s? Where is NATO? Because now citizens are being bombed. Where are you? Do something. At the phone, they didn't even take me serious. They just, can you send an email? That was their real response. Can you send an email? I'm shocked. So when you talk about Israel lobbying, it's so powerful that they even can stop these kind of things from happening. That we do the things that we should do for our citizens. I was appalled. I wrote about it, and there was, of course, a lot of outrage. But who am I?
The double standard.
The double standard.
Vis-a-vis, I mean, I have still screenshots from Ursula von der Leyen, where she said, in regards to Russia, of course, bombing civil infrastructure, bombing schools and bombing hospitals are war crimes, and basically we should hang Putin, whatever. Yeah. But when you look at Israel, which system, I mean, people have no concept of what happens really in Gaza. It's worse. I mean, structurally, it's a structural erasure of basically Gaza. It's moonscape. For miles, as long as the eye can see, you only see ruins. Right.
And again, the propaganda. First of all, did you know that Ursula von der Leyen, during that genocide, flew 20 times back and forth to Netanyahu. It's amazing, it's documented. What is she doing there? I mean, she's supposed to stand for our interests.
Did you see the interview with the American ambassador to Israel? I forgot now his name, with Tucker Carlson. Huckabee, yes.
Oh, my God.
I mean, as a behavior analyst, unbelievable. This guy is not American. This guy is an Israeli defending Israel. Look at the interview. There's not a single sentence where he's defending American interests. He is 100% defending Israeli interests.
And I think on his behalf, it's because that he's a Christian Zionist. That's.
I discussed this with Noam Chomsky, and in one of the interviews at the end, he said something that really stuck with me. He said, in one sentence, they will blow up the whole world, but who cares? God is on their side.
Yeah.
And that's what we are seeing now potentially in Iran.
Regarding the Palestinians, I woke up when I was 22, thanks to the NOS, by the way. And
I'm not sure that was a compliment now. But
no,
anyways,
that was a compliment because they were saying stuff, and I was like, okay, I'll tell you the story. They were always talking about there was a Palestinian terror attack, but there was Israeli retaliation. Now, if you look at the words again, but then I looked at the figures, how many people died, and it was always 20 times bigger on the Palestinian side than Israeli. So I thought by myself, these are very bad terrorists. They're not doing a good job. And then you wake up. Because then you start asking questions, and then you start investigating, and then I found out, wait a minute, I heard about the Nakba, etc. But now, many, many years later, I summed it up also on LinkedIn. I write articles, and I summed it up for the Dutch people who have no clue why this is all happening. Why the Palestinians? And if you sum it up, there are so many aspects. The Palestinians have nothing to do with it, but they are the victim. I can mention them to you. First of all, it's Western European anti-Semitism that caused this. We expelled the Jews.
We didn't want them from Russia.
We didn't want them. So, but first of all, it started with, of course, with World War II. Many Jews were taken away by Hitler.
Right, it started in 1880.
It started actually before, because in 1938 you had the Kristallnacht. Remember the Crystal Night, when the German people were so.
Yeah, but the Balfour Declaration is even
That's
older.
even before.
So it started around 1880 when this whole Zionist movement started to think about, hey, we want to go to Israel.
That's true. So there was already this. You're right. It's good that you made 1897, Theodor Herzl. But what happened? It accelerated because of the war. But 2 years before the war, the Jews were attacked in Germany when all their interests were being attacked. The Kristallnacht auf Deutsch. You speak German. Jews fled to the Netherlands and to Belgium, German Jews, and we kicked them out. And some of them we rounded up. And we even built Westerbork. You maybe know Westerbork was the first asylum center in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Asylum center.
Asylum center, yeah, exactly.
Quotation marks,
A camp, yeah. And the Germans used that too. Now, the Jews that came back after the war wanted their properties back, their houses.
No chance.
No chance.
Yeah.
We didn't want them anymore. Because that's it with refugees. We don't want them. So that's why they were pushed away. And what happened is this both Zionism and of course what happened after the world and the racism and anti-Semitism was all dropped in Palestine. Now that's one. Then you have this story of Christian Zionism, of course. There's a large group in the Netherlands. By the way, in my opinion, that's what I also try to explain to Dutch people. Of course, Jewish Zionism is a problem, but there are only like 10 million, 12 million of those. But worldwide, there are approximately 130 million Christian Zionists who believe in this end time story. That when all the Jews are back in Palestine and all the Arabs are expelled, then Jesus comes back. Yeah. He converts the Jews to Christians and then creates a new heaven and hell.
It's about 80 million in the US alone.
Yeah.
Around 80 million.
And these people are powerful because these are the ones amongst us. You don't recognize them, but they hold positions. In the Netherlands, we have them too. Look at the parties like SGP and ChristenUnie. Yeah. For me, they are like the Christian fundamentalists. And I couldn't believe this. I was like, I'm an atheist. So I read about it, but I thought, no. Then there was this documentary by Bose. There was a program where they mentioned this, and I said, if they studied it. So I went to Nijkerk, maybe you know Nijkerk, and there are the Christians of Israel. They have this shop there, they have their building from where they do crowdfunding, and the money they send to the settlers to buy weapons and kill Palestinians. I went in, I spent 4 hours in their shop, and I talked to the people there, to the volunteers, and they acknowledged that story with a shining face, with a happy face, because yes, it's happening now. Jesus is coming back. And I went out and I was like, oh my God.
Just before I came here, I saw, and I will put screenshots in the editing of this video. Yeah? So apparently Hague told the soldiers that they're sending to fighting in Iran, that they're there to cause Armageddon. And what does that mean? Exactly what you just said. They want to cause kind of the clash of civilization, which at the end kind of initiates the return of their Messiah. And you have two different streams. You have the Christian fundamentalists in the Western world, and you have the different fundamentalists in Israel, who by destroying the Al-Aqsa Mosque want to actually cause the same thing. So in a weird, twisted way, you have those interests combined from this Christian fundamentalists or Christian Zionists, and these groups in Israel who have the same goal, although for different reasons. Right?
Now, one of my sources that I use are Arabic sources. I have friends who help me in translating sometimes, because sometimes it's videos, interviews, and I cannot, of course, I don't speak Arabic. And I'm going to make a prediction, because it's rumored now, it's also being said, that in this whole war taking place now, a party could decide to cause the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Oops, sorry, it happened.
Oops, sorry, it happened.
Yeah.
And then explaining it as a rocket that was shot down or so. And sometimes I think maybe it should happen, so we can see that Jesus is not coming back and it's all a hoax. But I hope not, because it's a beautiful mosque, and I know my Palestinian friends, they love it. I mean, it's a wonderful place. But sometimes you almost, can you imagine that you can start thinking that? Let it happen, destroy it.
It's all moved by Hashem to this location, to that location. We don't know, maybe one of the missiles will hit the mosque and clear the place for the third Bet HaMikdash. That could also be a miracle. If it was up to me, the last time when they shot hundreds of missiles, I would pretend that one missile came from Iran and shoot it down. You know, then all the Arabs will go against Iran, and will be the end of the problems. You make them fight with each other, this bunch of lunatics. Never too late. You deal with a bunch of cowards. The Israeli leaders, they just want to pass the week.
That reminds me on the Swiss historian Dr. Daniel Ganser, because he said to me, Lihop, let it happen on purpose. He said it in a different context, but you said let it happen. Lihop, let it happen on purpose. Yeah.
So we have this Jewish Zionism, Christian Zionism, then the weapons industry, because Gaza is a playground for them.
Yeah.
Economic interests.
Laboratory.
There you go. Yeah. And then you have this greater Israel idea of a group of people.
Which we already see.
From the Nile to the Euphrates. And we are not allowed to say from the river to the sea, because then we are anti-Semitic.
So, very clear. Where anyone saying from the river to the sea is an affront to Israel does not know the basic facts. Yeah. So where is this statement from? Do you know it? The charter, it's in the charter of the Likud party. This is where the sentence comes from.
I heard about it.
From the river to the sea. This is in the charter of Israel's Likud party.
You're right. I knew that.
Right? So, anyway.
It's great. Yeah, I think we both agree what's going on. It's a terror country with a terrorist army.
Yeah. So, as a behavior analyst, I ask myself, especially after October the 7th, how can it be that young Israeli soldiers, male and female, do what they do in Gaza, right? Then I almost interviewed the whole family, the Pelet family. Mm-hmm. Miko Pelet might ring a bell. Nurit Pelet El-Hanan.
He's live on TikTok, so every now and then I join his lives.
I had Miko Pelet twice, or 2 or 3 times. Okay. His daughter, Nurit Pelet, it's a little story, but I shouldn't take too much speaking time here.
No, it's fine. Yeah, but I know what you want to say. Yeah.
So the grandfather Pelet was one of the founding one of the co-signatories of the Charter of Independence of Israel. Not a small guy. Their father, was a famous general in this 1967 war. He said, "Okay, now we won the war. Now we need peace." So he was kind of discarded. Yeah. So Miko, as you said, is already a very vocal speaker. His sister Nurit Pelet El-Hanan is a professor. Is a professor, but she kind of was. She says, "I wasn't kicked out, but kind of she's no longer teaching." But she studied Israeli school books, also propaganda in Israeli school books, and the single sentence that stuck with me, coming back to what you already said, they are teaching the pornography of evil in Israeli school books, meaning the complete indoctrination. And she not only looks at what's written, but she also uses the images. For example, whenever you have an image about Israel, it's kind of this clean Swiss village type style image, yeah, fully color. Whenever you talk about Arabs, it's like dirt, it's camels, it's sand, you know, this kind of stuff. Incredible. Now, where I want to go with this is Nurit Peled and her husband. They lost a 14-year-old daughter due to a suicide bomber in Tel Aviv. They could have turned to hate, but they turned to understanding. Now, there was an Irish author picking up the story, wrote a book about it, because there are two fathers. One is Nurit's husband, and the other one is a Palestinian father, who both have lost a daughter. The Palestinian father lost a daughter. She came out of a shop for sweets and was shot by an 18-year-old Israeli sniper twice in the head. So they're touring the world talking about this experience and how they kind of transform the hate into understanding and trying to build a better world. The Pope read this book, invited him twice, and Nurit told me in the interview, the Pope invited him twice already. So I asked her, so when is he going? He was already. Yeah? These kind of things. Yeah. So basically, I interviewed Miko, Nurit, and her husband. An incredible story.
But thank you for bringing this story up, because it's a very powerful story. People should know this story. And
I put a link to the book in the description of this interview, because it's the way it's written, it's unusual in the best possible sense.
Yeah. If I can relate to that more in a local context, I couldn't believe this either. So you always have to challenge this kind of information. Is it true that Jewish children, are being brainwashed in what I call a death cult? So I started reading about it initially, but now, thankfully, also thanks to social media, there's so much material that you can look at, even the films they distribute themselves, what's happening in these schools, that I saw the evidence of how these young kids are being told that the whole world out there wants them dead. And the Holocaust, it's almost a daily reminder, you know. And if you look at, maybe you noticed in Amsterdam, you live close to Amsterdam, the Jewish schools, they're heavily protected. Yeah, cameras around it, maréchaussée. And I'll tell you a story that happened to me. But if you do that, because in my opinion, nobody wants to kill them. Nobody. There are anti-Semites in the Netherlands, but it's a small group. They're on the right extremist side. We know that. Are they dangerous? No, I don't think so. But you don't need that kind of protection for children or other objects like synagogues. If you walk in The Hague to the synagogue, you'll find 2 maréchaussée cars and up to 2 to 6 police officers standing there all the time. Again, it's part of the Hasbara. It's part of the story. It's fueling this victimhood. Yeah? But now what happens is this. I'm part of a pro-Palestinian group. And we speak out about these atrocities. And we speak out against Zionism, which is not anti-Semitism. Yeah?
No matter how Netanyahu wants to conflate those two.
Exactly. And I'm very vocal, not only online, but I also go do demonstrations. I was the one who organized the demonstration against Kit, the first demonstration against Sidi. After it happened, this peaceful demonstration where we abided to the law, that day I was followed by maréchaussée on the road and stopped. Last week I walked with my kaffieh on the street here in The Hague, and I passed the synagogue and I was stopped. And again they started asking my ID and checking me. I stood there for 15 minutes. And this happened several times already. So where they need protection, we are the ones constantly being harassed for no reason. I was incarcerated already one night by the police for no reason whatsoever. And I was never judged. I was never veroordeeld, trialed. That kind of indoctrination we owe the Israeli lobby in the Netherlands. And that's what we are now trying to fight. And of course, I wrote an article about it. What's happening to their children, what they're doing to their children is horrible. Because how else can you explain that 18, 19-year-old children in the IDF can commit these atrocities? I use the following example. Even a Dutch soldier, like a Dutch youngster, a young adult in our army, it still has some sort of moral compass. Probably has some stops when violence is happening that knows I shouldn't do this. I don't see that in the IDF. These youngsters have been brainwashed so much that they can do these horrible things.
Right after kindergarten.
And we should look at that. We should dive. I think even the best forensic psychiatrist would have a big job in trying to fix this. And then we found out, not so long ago, that 645 of Dutch people fight in the IDF.
Yep.
And they're walking amongst us on the streets. I could meet one tomorrow on the street.
Yeah. Is it not so that I don't know the Europe or the Dutch law, yeah, but I know the law from another country. If you fight in the army of another state, you would lose your citizenship of that specific European country. I don't know how that is here.
No, what I think is that the law says if you are from, let's say, Germany, and you have a German citizenship, you live in the Netherlands, but if Germany goes to war and you have to, or is being attacked, let's call it that way, you have to help defend your country.
Yeah.
That's why there are so many.
But for a different country.
But I think that's allowed. So same with us. So probably these Dutch people, they have double passports, or they're Israeli maybe, or they have Thai. But is it allowed? Yeah, that's up to judicial people. I wish they would look it up. It's not happening, I'm afraid. But it would be a good thing to do, to investigate and see if we can prosecute these people, because they shouldn't be, in my opinion, on the street.
There is a parallel, and I know I walk on thin ice every time I bring it up. Yeah. So we had German war criminals hanged in Nuremberg based on the records they themselves kept. Now we have gazillions of social media clips showing proud young Israeli soldiers committing war crimes. Now I know that Al Jazeera has a repository of 2,000 media accounts where they collect all these kind of material. So I would not exclude that when all of this is over and the dust settles, if we come out alive, that there might be musea like we have today for the Holocaust, but also that we have trials based on evidence that these young men and women provided themselves. By the way, there's a campaign now running in Israel to clean social media from these.
Did you see they blur the soldiers now? They have a marketing channel for the IDF, and they all of a sudden, I follow them. So all of a sudden their faces are blurred. So they are shouting this rhetoric, of course, and dehumanizing the Palestinians. But now you can't see their faces anymore. Yeah. But the good development again is, and then history repeats itself. Probably you know who Simon Wiesenthal is.
Yeah.
The Nazi hunter.
Yeah.
We have a similar organization now called the Hinterrajab Foundation. And they have a huge database.
That's from the girl, based on the girl.
On the little girl, Hint, who was killed, 6-year-old Hint, who was shot.
Is it a Dutch organization?
No, it's not a Dutch organization, but it's founded by Palestinians, of course.
Yeah.
And they have a database with all these atrocities and war crimes. And I expect them to stay there for a couple decades, like Simon Wiesenthal, and hunt these Zionists who committed these war crimes. Yeah. I can only hope.
Yeah.
Because we need another Nuremberg. And talking about propaganda, also a thing I learned in history. Have you ever heard of the journalist called Julius Streicher? I think that's his name. Yeah. That was a journalist.
Dutch?
German. Julius Streicher.
Okay.
He was a propagandistic journalist in Nazi Germany. And he was one of the people responsible for dehumanizing the Jews. And he never killed a Jew. He never committed a physical crime. But he was hanged because of the simple fact that he spread propaganda. Now, I'm not saying we should start hanging people here, but what I want to say is this. Everybody responsible for propaganda leading to the result of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people should be trialed.
We wouldn't have a media anymore.
And locked up. We wouldn't have a media anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's what we started with this interview. That's what propaganda does with people.
Yeah.
And most people are ignorant. That's positive for them. Some are lazy maybe. I wish Dutch people would read more. If they hear something, go online, buy a book. Again, this book from Chris van der Ploeg, De Grote Koloniale Oorlog. Fantastisch. It's mind-blowing what you read.
Propaganda. Are you aware of NATO's cognitive warfare program?
Nee.
No. Okay.
Enlighten me.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, it's too expansive to go into detail. Yeah? But since 2022, we have NATO has a formal cognitive warfare program that targets the minds of people. And the interesting part is, not only the minds of the adversary, but also the minds of their own population. Yeah? I have all the original documents from NATO. They want to go with this, again, from a behavior analyst perspective, they're using the most sophisticated means you can imagine to kind of manufacture consent, to quote Chomsky again, yeah, for the wars that they already have planned, right?
Wow, yeah.
And again, this is on NATO level against their, again, not exclusively, but including their own population, right? And they sell it kind of as a counter propaganda, this kind of stuff, yeah. But de facto it is, you have a supranational organization that executes some kind of really sophisticated, I wouldn't even call it propaganda. Yeah, it's more than that. It's way more propaganda, yeah. When people hear propaganda, they think, yeah, Nazi Germany, Goering, you know, this kind of thing. First of all, it's not true, because the father of propaganda is Edward Bernays, who was an American, Sigmund Freud's nephew, right?
Okay.
Way before the yeah. So this is more sophisticated. I think the name that they themselves gave this program, cognitive warfare, hits it pretty straight on the nail's head, so to speak.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
And
Since 2022.
by the way, looking at the Netherlands, now making a switch to the new peace movement, if you like, about militarization, what's going on with our youth, for instance, it's the same is happening now. We noticed that our Ministry of Defense is infiltrating the schools. But it's also something it's a bit secretive what's happening. Because first of all, they cut down on education in the Netherlands. Yeah, they
Everywhere.
Then they give a lot of money to the Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Defense goes to universities, high schools, stuff like that, say, we have money, let's do research. So that's how they enter now massively our schools. In the meantime, also starting up these advertisements, these campaigns to attract younger people to come to the army. You may have heard that maybe our government sent out an interview that you can fill in.
They only had 8% respondents.
Yes, luckily, that's good news. So, but nevertheless, our children are now being
targeted,
because they want to attract young people. I call them child soldiers, kindsoldaten.
Yeah, you and me, we are too.
Yeah, child soldiers, because we are talking about many people in Holland, in the Netherlands, don't know that we have an education at the ROC. The ROC is like MBO, as we call it in the Netherlands. It's called VEVA. VEVA. Veiligheid, vakmanschap.
Security, yeah.
But it's about security, it's about military. So they are pulling 15, 16-year-old children now to choose that direction. And they offer them fantastic programs, with companionship, friendship, action, tension, I meet these kids. When I go by train, I talk to them. They come from Breda, for instance. I talk to them and ask them, why are you doing this? And then I hear all these stories, not about maybe becoming a war criminal or being killed yourself or maimed or having a trauma or whatever. I say, did you ever listen to veterans? Did you ever check a veteran channel on YouTube to listen to these people, what they're saying about their past experience? And that is so bad, actually. It's also propaganda. So we are now, and I'm shocked by the fact that the majority of the Dutch people believe that we should proceed with militarization and spend a lot of money on defense instead of dialogues and de-escalation. That we even have a group within the new peace movement called Docenten voor Vrede, Docenten voor Vrede,
so
Teachers for Peace, who are now trying to debunk that and who seek contact with schools and with teachers to help them also. When children come with problems, hey, I'm being attracted to the army, I don't want to, can you help me? I feel insecure, I don't want that. It's so bad, and that's also part of propaganda, of course. And we are trying to fight it with no funds. And we look at an organization, Ministry of Defense, that can spend millions and millions of euros.
Yeah.
It's really worrying.
But it shows something very important. That's something that people have to understand. There is premeditation. There is anticipation, right? And if you talk about, there are a whole list of policies that are already being implemented.
Yeah.
CSFP 2025, Council Resolution CSFP 2025-966. It's a whole mouthful, but there are a number of those policies that are being implemented, that have already been implemented on a European level, that allows unelected officials in Europe, meaning circumventing any courts, put you on a embargo list, on a sanctions list. So your bank account is frozen. You can no longer travel. Any person or company that assists you in any way is criminally legible, right? We have the last time I checked, we have now 58 persons already on that sanction list.
That's amazing, yeah.
You have 2 Germans. They are prevented from entering their home country. They no longer can go home, basically. Yeah, purely for speaking out. So the last prominent example was Jacques Beau.
Yeah, I followed his case. He's Swiss, eh? An army general.
Yeah.
And he's also now...
He was intelligence, Swiss
intelligence, yeah. And he also became aware of what's going on, and that we are heading the wrong direction, and spoke about it, speaks up about it. And he's now being silenced that way.
Yes, he's on this list. All his assets are frozen. He can no longer travel. He can no longer do everything. What people don't realize, your email accounts, your social media, everything is gone. He can still speak because he speaks on other people's platform. I tried to reach out to him, so far without success.
Okay.
But I want to say with this specific CSFP 2025 was supposedly installed against Russian propaganda. But now we have Natalie Yam. She is an African lady who campaigns against French colonialism in Africa, has nothing to do whatsoever with Russia. Guess what? She's on the list too. She was one of the first, actually. I think she's on this list since 2024, right? So what I want to say with this is these kind of policies, they're being implemented for one task, but they have the tendency to be expanded, right? I have an article, if you allow me, it's called The Velvet Chains, where I have a number of these policies listed and explained that are already being implemented here in Europe. This is not a one-off. Yeah. So little by little, we in Europe, we are being put in a velvet cage. We just don't know it yet because the cage at this moment is still velvet, but it will not remain that way, right?
And can you imagine that when I talk about this to my fellow citizens, when I drink a coffee somewhere, they look at me like, are you crazy?
It's a lonely journey.
Are you crazy?
It's a lonely journey, I know.
But here we are, look at us.
Yeah.
And by the way, we know this within the New Peace movement, which is a big movement, people are aware, but it's still a small group.
Yeah.
And this scares me.
It is.
And we create this monster, and then we go back again. We make those people coming up with these things.
Yeah.
They work for us, eh?
In theory.
But now I ask myself, how are we ever going to change this back?
If you ask me, we are, so first of all, if we zoom out, so we the West are at the tail end of a period, depending on who you ask, between 500 and 600 years of Western hegemony. We the West, we exploited, if you look at it objectively, there is no other word. It's even a friendly word that I'm using. We exploited the rest of the world for the last 400 to 600 weeks. Yes. And this is coming now to an end. Yeah. No matter what America does in Iran or any other country, this period is at its end. And this is why we're seeing everywhere those conflicts flaming up. And this is, again, just the beginning. We will see more of that. Yeah. So my hunch, again, opinion, not research, is that we will head through a big bang, and after this massive bang, this massive slap in the face, this wake-up call, however you call it, we will do the same thing that we did after, if we make it.
Yeah.
We will do the same that we did after the Second World War, and a generation later, it's probably
they repeat it again. And actually, to be honest, there are so many signs pointing in that direction.
Yeah.
More and more countries get involved now in what's happening in Iran, of course.
Yeah.
But if America and Israel is successful, there's going to be a new structure that will hamper us all. So in the end, we will not like it, this new reality that we have to live in, because we don't want to live in a world like that. So that will explode in the near future. But maybe, and that's what scares me the most, now imagine that Israel will not be successful this time. What if Israel is affected? They have this thing called the Samson option. Many people don't know that. Israel has always said, if we can't have it, nobody can have it. And they have these nuclear warheads with Amsterdam written on it and Paris, as far as I understand. I'm also not an expert here, so I studied it, but that's scary.
It is.
Are they capable of self-destruction if they can't have it? The big Israel? I don't know. So there are many scenarios now thinkable that are becoming an option to evolve. I'm not very positive actually about the near future.
maybe for you who don't know and who think we make this up. So this is public knowledge. So first of all, Israel has nuclear weapons. We know, everybody knows it.
Approximately 400, I think, yeah.
And the Samsung option is an official policy, right? So if we go down, you go down. That's basically my black and white. Yeah. Now the challenge or the danger here is that we have a radical, fundamentalist, right-wing government in Israel, and we have a defense minister, Hague, I think I said it already, who sends the soldiers into Iran saying, we will create Armageddon.
Yeah.
I mean, the biblical reference of Armageddon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have these two magnets.
Amplifying each other. Yeah.
So that's scary. Right?
Yeah, and as an atheist, for me, I say it's a freak show. I look at it from the side, what's happening. But well, I grew up in Catholicism, so I know what it is to be religious. I was religious, a believer in Jesus and everything. I had to debunk myself.
In the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus?
In the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus.
Yeah, of course.
That's the one, yeah. So I know how it works. Because also, and there was an age where you were not allowed to tell me that Jesus didn't exist. Then we would have a fierce debate. But I got over it. But I also can relate with religious people. But it can be very strong, that faith. And that they accept the fact that there will be an end game where all the Arabs are gone, and what I told you, Jesus coming back. If people can think that way,
intelligent people,
they are capable of doing it.
Yeah,
and that scares me.
Yeah, and now we have, and it's a lady who said it to me first. We have the orange man in the White House, who kind of. I mean, this guy is not religious. If you look at his track record, this is pretense. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. Yeah, but people like Hexet, and the MAGA base, this is more dangerous, right? Which is why this whole Epstein scandal is so dangerous for Trump, which may or may not be a reason why Trump now agreed for this attack on
his war.
Iran.
They have dirt on him, and he has to fight because as long as he fights, he can keep the attention away from the Epstein files.
And if you know how to, you can see the volume of the requests on Google for the Epstein scandal dropping in free fall. Yeah. So for the time being, if that was Trump's strategy, for the time being he's succeeding. I don't know if that will last. I don't know if that will help him. Yeah. Depends, of course, how bad it's gonna get in the Middle East. Yeah. But if that was his goal, measurable on Google statistics, you can see it. For the time being, he's succeeded.
I'm also looking for these files because I'm very interested. Because a lot is hidden, I think, still. And as a data guy, I know how to mine the data. Even text mining is a thing we can do. But yeah, so far I haven't been able to find it.
No. Pieter, I have no clue actually how long we already talk. I do not know. I lost track of time. But we scratched on quite a number of topics.
Quite a number of topics, yeah.
So is there anything that you would still like to discuss? What's close to your heart?
Yeah, what's close to my heart, maybe to finish with, is what's going on in the Netherlands now when it comes to militarization also. What they're doing to our children. That really worries me a lot. And I would like to warn the parents, grandparents, the children, the teachers. Keep an eye on those kids because they don't know what they are lured into. And they should be protected. And I also would like to, if possible, reach out to all these people. If you feel something bad is happening with your children, reach out to us as teachers for peace, docenten voor vrede, because we want to be there for you. We're also thinking of organizing judicial support in the future when the government starts forcing children to go to the army. Because we shouldn't do that. Because we've seen what happened to people. I speak a lot of veterans. Like I said, I have a TikTok channel, so I do a lot of live sessions. Lately about Iran, by the way, so Iranian people come in. Maybe we can talk about it at some other time. It's so interesting what I learn from all these people. So thanks to these people, I can also debunk the stories being told here, for instance. Yeah? Maybe a short one. You know that this king is being prepared, this Reza Pahlavi.
The son of Reza Pahlavi.
In the Netherlands, if you say, it's not an option, then people become crazy. But if I speak online to Iranian people living there,
an option.
They have different views and they don't want America and Israel to be there. Now, same with youth. So I speak a lot of youth and a lot of parents who are really scared now. but are afraid to speak up. And that's the situation in the Netherlands now. And we should protect our kids.
Yeah.
Militarization is not an option. It's a dead end. It's more violence is not going to work.
That's a trend that's in all of Europe. In all of Europe.
Yeah.
Now, I spoke to someone from a neutral country who said to me, well, we are neutral. And I said, well, look what happened in Sweden. And overnight, without any discussion, 200 years of neutrality was just poof, gone.
Yeah.
In preparation again. Yeah. So, how shall we end this on a positive note? I'm looking out.
On a positive note. Yeah. The sun is shining.
The sun is shining. Everyone is living his life here. I see the cafes here everywhere. They're full.
I have a positive note because more and more people really connect to us, like the new peace movement, and that makes me hopeful. So more and more people start to understand this is not the road ahead. And these are all good and smart people. They live everywhere. And also, but the good news is that many of these people, they also step in and they start doing voluntary work. They organize events. We have these region circles growing now. That's positive because that's a vibe that we can send out into the country. Although we don't have any money, we're making a difference. And I truly believe that. And that makes me happy.
Pieter Rambags. Do I say this correctly? Rambags?
Rambags, yeah.
Pieter Rambags. It was my pleasure talking to you here in your office in Den Haag.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation.
I hope we can do this again.
Please, yes, I love it.
Okay.
Good. Because there are many more topics. We can talk about refugees if you like next time. No, it's okay.
Okay.
I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. I will switch everything out. How was it? I've really lost track. I don't know when we started. Now it's 3:30. So when did we start?
We really went. I think we spoke 1.5 hours.
Something like that. So we didn't start. So it took us at least half an hour. So I was here 1:30. Let's say we started at 2.
A little bit past 2, so more than an hour.
More than an hour.
And that's a lot, because when we do interviews, we usually have like 45 minutes to an hour. So maybe you should cut it. Or
No.
No, you're not going to do it.
No, I usually have about 90 minutes. Some of my interviews are 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah. But again, look, I don't have a fixed thing. Okay, I'm half German. So I try to keep things organized. I always am over-prepared, yeah. But I learned from experience, if there is a flow, I just go with the flow.
Yeah,
that's the most spontaneous, authentic, whatever. Yeah. Sometimes I have a subject matter expert and I know the likelihood that I speak to this person again is very slim. Then I want to address a couple of topics, like things I have in between. But for the rest, I let it go. Yeah.
Actually, you're a jazz musician. I'm a jazz musician. That's what we do. So we improvise.
Yeah.
But at some point, we have no more stories to tell.
Yeah.
So the concert stops. Yeah. And we don't know. It could be 50 minutes. It could be 1.5 hours. It's just how we feel that day.
Just a proposition. So I am just finishing a 70-page ebook about how to spot. Okay. I have a couple of projects also with AI. I'm collecting now, I don't know, I have 30,000 headlines from 128 outlets in 28 countries. So I'm analyzing them. It's a different project. That's not where I want to go there. But I'm just finishing a 70-page ebook, how you can spot propaganda only in headlines of media. So as a linguist, and I have 6 techniques identified in all of those countries, in all of those outlines, right? So I need maybe a week or so, then it's done. But I would be happy to distribute it to whoever is interested.
Hey, if you want to use us as a platform, like the New Peace Movement.
It gives, this book has one reason only: teach people how to detect spin in headlines. Why headlines? Because we know we know that depending on the platform, between 60 and 80% of the people only read headlines. Means the headlines are the news. And surprise, editors, spin doctors, politicians, they all know that, right? So in this book are 6 specific techniques. Once you know it, you know it. Yeah. And as a linguist, if you're interested.
I'm definitely interested.
When so now and then I speak on security events. Yeah, the last one was in Poland actually. In Poland, where we had Mossad, CIA, everybody was there. So two examples from my linguistic brain. Yeah. So we have different types of words, but we have function words and content words. Content words, table, sky, running, whatever. Yeah. Function words are the little words that glue it all together. pronouns, articles. Yeah. Point is, you speak as an English speaker. We have a vocabulary of about 100,000 words, right? But there are only 0.5%, 450 function words in those 100,000. Now, these function words are being processed in a different part of the brain, which evades conscious awareness. And one more thing. These function words, those 450 words, whilst I'm speaking, I'm using them 55% of the time. Means 55% of what I'm speaking evades my conscious awareness. Now, investigator, police, whatever, if I as an investigator want to focus on your function words, it would cost me so much cognitive effort that I would be no longer able to follow what you're saying. Reversely, if I as a suspect or as a guilty suspect, whatever, would try to manipulate my function words, same thing, cognitive load is so high that I would no longer be able to consciously to speak. Yeah. Now, I have two examples from each direction. Bill Clinton was asked by Jim Lehrer, and I have the whole transcript, yeah, did you have sexual selection with this woman? And he says, that's correct, there is no sexual this is correct, there is no sexual relation with that woman. Now, I always bring it up, especially when I have investigators and so, yeah. I say there is one word. I mean, first of all, Bill Clinton fooled the whole world when he said this, because they believed him at the time. But anyone with a basic understanding of linguistics, the most basic level, would have seen that, number one, Bill Clinton did not answer the question. Number two, he answered a different question instead. So, Jim Lehrer, I believe, was the interviewer, most experienced interviewer that CBS had at the time, asked, did you have a sexual relationship with that woman? And Bill Clinton said, that's correct, there is no sexual relationship with that woman. Did you spot it? Interviewer asked past tense. Did you have in the past had? Bill Clinton said, I don't have one right now. And this is why he under oath could say, I spoke the truth, because he did. Because at that very moment when he was asked, he no longer had a relationship with Monica Lewinsky. Yeah. That's how difficult it is to spot it. Now, the other way, how to control it, comes from a real FBI investigation. And I interviewed the FBI agent who was under Ronald Reagan in the White House, yeah, special agent for the FBI. Comes from an investigation of him. So a young lady said she was kidnapped. And the young lady said, someone came from behind, put something over my head and put me into the car. Someone came from behind, put something over my head and put me or threw me into the car. Again, one word that gave her away. Why? Well, when I ask people, most people say, well, the vagueness. They instinctively you go for this vagueness, yeah? Someone came from behind, put something over my head and put me into the car. Not a car, any car, whatever car, I don't know the car. This specific car. That was a red flag for the interviewer going back, because the logical grammatical formulation would have been put me into a car.
A car, yeah.
Whatever car, whatever, yeah.
So she knew the car.
She knew the car before. And it turns out it was her boyfriend, they just blah, 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 whatever, yeah.
My God.
Yeah. So once you know these kind of things, yeah.
Wow.
I love those two examples because they're so, imagine, how shall I say this, so practical, so
applicable. People can understand it when you explain
exactly.
it, because people need an example.
Yes.
Like my example of the lion, by the way, talking about propaganda. Yeah. My God, I was shocked when it happened to me.
True. Good, but now I switch it.
Yeah, I understand.
And the first one is, this one.
The story about the lion was this. You stand in front of the classroom and you say, people, who's the king of the jungle?
You're still on, yeah.
And then, okay, you're the king of the jungle. Who's the king of the jungle, Thomas?
The lion.
The lion. How many lions are there in the jungle?
None.
None, okay. Next one. But a lion is a good hunter, right? Like a lion, the male lion, he's a fantastic hunter.
Yeah.
Most people say yes, but that's not true, because it's the females, they hunt. And And he's a fantastic, he can roar, you know, like, you know, that's yeah, correct, eh? And then people say, yeah. And then I show them a video on YouTube of a barking lion. Not only one, I have several, like that sound. And everybody's like, okay. So when I then later, I go on with my story, and then half an hour later I ask everybody, who believes a lion roars? Can I see hands? Who believes a lion roars? And nobody lifts their hand because a lion barks. It was a shock to them, but yeah, they've seen it now. They've seen the evidence. He barks. So, and then I show them videos of roaring lions, like, you know, like, and they're like, what? Yeah, I told you two truths, so you trusted me, and I fed you another one, which was a lie. But you trust me. And this happened to me on TikTok, because there was a guy, it was very well done, but there was a guy who asked the 3 questions on TikTok in a little video. And then a week later, I saw that same guy with a new video. So it had to be in that order. Eh? So he was very lucky that I saw him again. And then, do you remember and he yeah, of course, because I saw it, because maybe I didn't, if I hadn't seen that other video, then he would come on my timeline. I would say, other video? No, I haven't seen it, but I saw the other video. Did you remember my other video where I told you this? Yeah. So you think lions don't run? Hey, me, eh? I'm like, hey, lions don't roar. And then he showed me the video of a roaring lion. I was shocked. Yeah, 60 years old, eh? I think, oh my God, this is how...
We are all receptive to manipulation. And that's it for today. Over and out.
But you're not going to use this, are you?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I do not know yet.
Well, if you want, you can use it if you want to,
Yeah.
in the propaganda context, in the classroom if you like.
Yeah.
Can I give you some water?
Thank you.